What's going on, guys? It's Barrett with the Gimpy Camper. I'm here to tell you today about a series of videos that I'm doing. This is going to be the first part in that series. We're doing a really complicated rebuild of the RV. You know, I have a cheap camper. That's what it is, and that's what it'll always be. It's not worth totally rebuilding everything. It did have some water damage in it when I bought it. I thought, well, I'll fix these soft floors by just changing out the plywood. Well, it's a lightweight camper, so I couldn't do that because the floor is basically 2 sheets of like 1/4-inch plywood with styrofoam sandwiched between them. So I have seen some ways to redo that, but it's really complicated. So when I fixed that, all I did was go over the floor with 1/2-inch plywood. And I took that 1/2-inch plywood and then I put it all over the floor, and then I put vinyl on top of it. It took out all of the soft spots except for one and still made it like 75% better. So, you know, that's kind of my goal here, is to keep things low cost, because I have a habit of overbuilding everything. So we're trying to not do that. So for this week's project, what we're going to be doing, essentially, we're adding a few solar panels. My neighbor across the street lets me keep my camper over there, and you know, in the summertime the fridge needs to get cold. It takes a couple of days to get cold. I don't know if you've had experience with that kind of stuff, but it does take a long time to get cold. I thought the fridge was broke when we first got it until I did some research, and it takes a couple of days, especially in Tennessee 100-degree weather. So because it's at the neighbor's house, what we're doing is putting the solar panels on. That way the solar panels will keep the battery charged, and I can keep the refrigerator on a few days before we head out. The issue is that the propane will keep the fridge running for virtually ever because it doesn't use very much propane, but the battery won't last more than a day or two before it dies out, which I probably need to upgrade the battery system. So the battery I have is an AGM battery. It costs like $300 or $400. I didn't really know anything about RV batteries when I bought it. I just knew I needed a battery, and it sounded like a better option because it had more cells in it. But it was pretty daggum expensive. And so now I know that I would probably rather have golf cart batteries, but I don't want to go buy some golf cart batteries because I don't want to waste the investment in the other battery. So I'm kind of stuck at the moment because I'm not going to buy another $300 or $400 battery anyway. I'd really like to have lithium batteries, but we're not going there. It's too expensive right now. So the deal is what gets us to this point is we were thinking about doing this solar panel to keep the refrigerator running, right? Well, there's a spot in the front right corner. Most of the rest of the roof's pretty solid. At least that's what my stepdad had told me initially when he helped me clean it off, because he doesn't weigh 300 pounds. So this front corner was softer. And so what I did is I decided, well, if I'm going to put those solar panels down, even though it's not going to be directly on this area, only a fool would not fix the problem first. I did seal it back up last year with some Eternabond tape, and I thought that it was working out pretty good. The delamination and stuff that I have on the front cap wasn't getting any worse, but when I took it apart, there was some moisture under there, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. I'm going to have to seal it back up a lot better. So this whole project is basically a delicate balance. So it's cost of money because the camper's not worth investing a whole lot, but cost of money versus longevity, right? And so I'm not spending $12,000 in the camper just so it'll last longer, because I can buy a lot better camper for that. So that's what we're doing. It's just mitigating the risk that we have, and that's where we are. And the next thing that we have to do in order to do the solar is we, you know, have that front cap exposed, so we might as well try to fix the delamination while we're there. This is the part that has me most apprehensive, because I don't know what I'm going to find over there. It's where a lot of the delamination is that's on the camper, and I would rather not have to rebuild everything if I can get around it at all. I got a gallon of epoxy. We're going to try that and we're going to see what it looks like. So what we've done today is just preparing to do this project. And so first thing we had to do was get the Turnabond off. Then we had to scrape off the die core that was under the Turnabond. And then we had to take all of the trim panels off of the roof cap and the two front corners and the bottom of the roof. And in order to get that first section of the front corner of the roof that we got to work on, I had to take the awning loose. I had to take some of the gutter guard, the rain gutter loose. And so that's just to expose that corner. I mean, you got to get to it. So I'm going to kind of do a voiceover for the rest of this, just showing you what we did today. Okay, so let's start by taking a look at the damage here. The right upper corner is the worst, this spot that goes down to the window from the light. The best way that I found to remove this Turnabond tape is to use the hair dryer. It really softens it up and lets it come up a lot easier. It's still a big pain in the butt though. After you get done with that though, then you got to scrape the die core off. You might just have die core on there to start with. But you got to get to the screw heads to the trim underneath that for this front cap anyway. There's a closer look at it. You can see the screws there. This work isn't necessarily hard, it's just time consuming. That and the humidity outside. It wasn't too easy today. You know, when you get that stuff off, then you got to get the screws out. Several of the screws most of them were rusty, some of them broke off. You know, some of them weren't biting on anything, so I had to use the scraper. And then when you get the screws out, then you go back and scrape underneath it and pry it loose. Try to be careful not to bend it too much if you're going to reuse it, which I plan on reusing it. Then we go to the corner molding. You know, to get that off, you got to pull the rubber molding out of the insert. At the top, they usually really have it sealed up with die core though, so it doesn't come out. So you just got to keep working at it till you get that loose, and then you can pull that rubber molding off all the way to the bottom. Then you go through, take all the screws out, and then you can pry that piece of molding off. Basically, most of this molding works the same way no matter where it is. This is the piece along the bottom of the fiberglass on the camper. So you go through, take the screws out of it, and then pry it off. Then because the delamination was so close to the window, I wanted to remove the window. Apparently to do that, you got to take the valance off first. There were 3 screws in the bottom of this one, one on each side and one in the middle. And then you got to go around and take all the screws out of the interior circumference of the window, and then you can walk outside and just pry the sealant loose and it'll pop right off. Luckily it's at an angle so it didn't want to fall out. And this is the first look at our rot that we're going to have to fix. I did expect to find this. You know, I think there's a little bit more in the front than I thought that there would be though. But we just tarped her up to wait till tomorrow so we could hit it again.